There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today's episode is very special. When I learned about the With Love, Now and Forever CATS4COVID relief fundraiser, I knew The Wrong Cat Died had to be involved. So let me tell you about this fundraiser. The touring cast of CATS National 3 is reuniting for a very special virtual theatrical event for the Broadway Cares COVID-19 Emergency Assistance Fund, which supports the Actors Fund. This special event will premiere Friday, October 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern at broadwaycares.org/catsbenefit and will be available through October 27th. So today, I have some of the amazing people involved with this production to talk about the fundraiser, the CATS National 3 Tour, and every other crazy CATS question that I'm prepared to ask today. So without further ado, welcome award-winning director Jonathan Cerullo, who conceived and produced the fundraiser, Broadway choreographer Joanne Hunter, who helped script the fundraiser, and Grammy Award winner Leslie Ellis, who's performing a spectacular version of Memory for the event. So welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, and thank you all for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
Exactly. So I'm very excited to talk about the fundraiser, but before we do, I think we really have to go back a little bit because everyone who's listened to this podcast knows that all of my history and information, everything I know about CATS is the 1998 movie, which is on YouTube, and the 2016 production, which I saw twice, and then just what I've read on the internet, nothing else. And so you three are going to bring a perspective that I'm excited for because the CATS National Tour 3 was in the 80s. And it's like this was the first time I believe CATS went into a bunch of major cities. So the first thing I really want to hear is what was it like performing CATS at that time when, you know, the fan reaction, like what was it like? How are fans reacting to it? What was it like being on tour? This is still a pretty new musical at this point. So let's just jump in with that to start.
It was the biggest thing at the time.
Yes, Leslie is right. I will tell you, in speaking with Tom Viola about this, he had this prolific statement that he said, "You guys were the Hamilton of your times." And it didn't actually hit me until he said that, and I could equate that. But it really was. And Joanne, I'll let you say the quote that you did in the press release. But yeah, it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think, Mike, back in the 80s, there were 4 first-class productions of CATS in the United States. And first class meaning you got paid top tier, basically. Now there's barely a first-class production, even with the hit musical going out with all the new contracts. So it was, as Leslie said, it was a big deal. I mean, to put CATS on your resume, you felt like you made it. Absolutely. It was this show to be a part of, whether you were a dancer who sang or a singer who danced or moved. You know what I mean? Everybody wanted to be a part of CATS. I do believe that. I mean, I remember the cattle calls. Every time a CATS call happened, every 6 months, they were massive, massive audition calls.
And it was interesting, too, with that, Jimmy Walski, our dance captain, who is part of this event, said, "You realize that between New York, Los Angeles, and Canada," I didn't realize that they auditioned Canada for this production, they saw well over 1,000 people for 22 roles on stage, and plus the swings and understudies. So by the time we were cast, they had exhausted quite a lot of auditions with that, and they had to choose the best of the best that they saw appropriate for the show. So I was very honored.
So I did read that there was 4 tours going on at the same time. How does that work? Were you almost like? Well, it feels a little like you're rumbling a little bit about which performances are the best and which cities you're going to.
Well, the first 2 one was in Los Angeles entirely. I don't think
that's a sit-down company, right?
Maybe it went to San Francisco for a few weeks beforehand or something. And the second one was in Boston I think it was sitting in Boston. And then we were the first touring company that went, did 1 week spots.
and you went, I mean, I read that this is the first time that you went to a lot of major cities. I am a little fascinated by, even calling it the Hamilton of the time, because to me, it seems like now everyone has an opinion on Cats, whether they love it or hate it. They kind of know what they're getting. But in the 80s, I think a lot of people probably it wasn't as generally accepted as like what you would go see on Broadway. So how did people, what was the reception like, when you were selling out weeks in advance?
We were sold out, and I remember very specifically going to the theater and seeing lines around around the corner at the box office for people to get tickets to the show, and the producers knew that we were making a lot of money for the company, and so that's one of the reasons, and we can get into it. We were booked into outdoor theaters where we were playing to 12,000 seats, and we did that. Ladies, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we did 3 outdoor theaters or 2.
2.
I remember 2. Yeah.
2. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
In Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
Cicadas, Cincinnati.
Yes. Cicadas.
Cicadas in Cincinnati. Yes, that was a lovely experience.
That's right. I was on vacation that week.
That's right, Joanne. That's right. BK told me that. BK, who played our tugger, they said, no, Joanne and I were on vacation during that week. I was like, oh, lucky you missed the thunderstorms and cicadas flying into our mouths.
Yeah, I had a cicada fly into my mouth during memory.
And Michael, what we're talking about was...
I just had to have a hairball on stage,
As you know, cicadas only come out once every, biblical century. And of course, when we were playing the outdoor theater, they whatever they do, come out of their cocoons or whatever. And it was just a cacophony of cicadas, and we actually referenced that in our event, which when you tune in, you'll hear that.
Cincinnati, they're just trying to give you the true Cats experience.
Yeah, they welcomed us with open arms.
Another thing, if I can interject, and I'm quoting. I'm quoting what Jimmy Walski said. He said, so you realize that the team that put this together had put together, the Broadway company, Stanley Lebowski, his music director, Tom Reed, T. Michael Reed, our dance supervisor, David Taylor, our director. And they were descendants of Trevor and Jillian. I'm correct about that, ladies, right?
That is correct. They put together every company that followed.
That's right. That's right. They put and so by the time they got to us, our audition, they had done it twice already, and they were really quite, set on what they were looking for and how to put that show together. So we were treated very, very well in terms of the conception of that show and having it be very, very strong. That company, oh my God, was a very strong company. I will say that.
And also, we were treated so well. We were just welcomed. And Jonathan and I we talk about the benefit that we did back then. We were on the road, and people let us use conference rooms in the middle of the night after the show, and hotels and things so we could rehearse. And when we were in Kansas City, we had a costume shop that donated all the costumes for this benefit that we put on this benefit. And we made almost $40,000, which was a lot of money at the time. And, the Jonathan and I were on costumes. And so we all kind of just pitched in, and it was to raise money for AIDS awareness and AIDS research back in the day when there wasn't much in that regard. So, everybody just said, sure, we'll donate 22, gold tuxedos so you can do one singular sensation. It was unbelievable. We never would have been able to do it without that.
Yeah. And so reading up on that, it's amazing to read that in one night, raising $40,000 in the late 80s.
In 1987. That's a lot of money for something that some majority of Americans really didn't have a grasp on the toll it was taking.
So what do you remember about that night? How did the idea come up and just the reaction from the community for, again, like you said, something that a lot of people didn't know a lot about?
Can I jump in, ladies, and say this? Because
I don't remember how it started.
I do very clearly. I remember being in the hotel room. We were already 9 months on the road, and the news came on, and it was Tom Brokaw. If you remember Tom Brokaw, the newscaster, and he said, "Ladies and he announced that Michael Bennett had just passed away from the HIV/AIDS virus." And I shot up and I tuned in. I was like, "What? What did he just say? Michael Bennett died?" And I walked into the theater and into the men's dressing room that night, because we were all sort of pretty much in the dressing room. I said, "Guys, I don't know about you, but I just can't sit still. We need to do something." And our Monkish Trap, Randy Clements, had been part of, I think, the tour of Chorus Line, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
one of the
I believe
national.
he was like in the first national, I believe. Yes,
he played Zach, if I'm not mistaken, right, Joanne?
Correct. You are correct. Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, why don't we do a tribute to Michael Bennett?" And that's how it started. And you're talking to Leslie, Joanne, and myself. We all had very active roles in putting that benefit together. And like Leslie said, you didn't really talk about HIV/AIDS. And this was actually
not outside New York. You didn't, or San Francisco.
Not outside of New York.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because this was actually 2 years before Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS was even formed. And it was Judy and Mickey, let's put on a show. But oh my God, I can still see this production that we did. And Joanne was so special. Joanne helped to choreograph it, and she put several numbers together for it. And Leslie and I were on costumes. We did the costumes. So
we did the costumes, and I also created the posters with Adria. Everybody, it was very grassroots, and that's the kind of team it was. That's one of the things that made it so special. I mean, you can imagine I'd been on other tours, and it's hard being on the road like that. I mean, but we were young and we were eager and we were excited, and we all it was a real love fest. I mean, I remember it as such. So if it wasn't, kids, don't remind me. But it was the most amazing like collaboration. It was so grassroots. Everyone said, "Well, I can do that," which is a number from Chorus Line. So,
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that, well, one, like I said, or for me anyway, I don't want to speak for everybody, but for me, getting CATS was the end of end all. I mean, it was okay. I've done it. And then when we're thrown in a room with everybody who's never done the show. None of us came from another company or the Broadway company. We were all brand new to the show. Which it doesn't always happen. Lots of times they'll bring people from another company over. Our company was a brand spanking new group of actors and performers.
That's right, Joanne. I didn't realize that.
And we were forced to crawl around the floor our first day of rehearsal and basically smell and lick each other. So we got to know each other really well, really fast. And the trust, I think the trust happened immediately. And I think as a whole, it was a great, beautiful group of people. And, when we had heard the news of Michael Bennett passing, it was, it hits the theater community. I mean, he was an icon, right? But then, as Jonathan said, that T. Michael Reed, who basically he was Jillian's eyes and ears, right? Jillian Lynn's, and he's one who put everything together. A month and a half, and correct me if I'm wrong, later, T. Michael Reed died of AIDS.
That's right.
We were told, I'll never forget this, we were told at the 5-minute call.
Yes.
And I remember being in tears and doing that damn adage. And I was like this, I got to get through this. It was so emotional. And so we put that benefit together. I think he died in August. God, I wish I had my paperwork in front of me. I can't remember, but I believe we put that benefit together within a month, 2 months after.
You are absolutely right, Joanne. It was a few weeks later that T. Michael had passed away.
That hit us hard because he was a brilliant, kind human being. Yeah,
he was close with Michael Bennett. I think he actually was part of the Chorus Line, entourage there. But unfortunately, and when you watch our benefit, we do an in memoriam section to I'm going to get choked up to those that we lost, and we did we did lose many cast members and crew, and it was just, and so with that, I'll jump to this moment because I'm going to break down. The Gatchel Neufeld, which was our general managers, and Nina Lannon, who is a brilliant woman in the theater, producer and a general manager, they came down to see our benefit. And she pulls us aside and she goes, guys, you guys should continue this. You guys should do this, when you can. And the one stipulation is it cannot interfere with the show, with what we're getting paid for. But I think you guys should continue this. And Mike, what was wonderful with that company is that we did little one-offs all across the country, and we got very fancy. At one point, Lily Tomlin agreed to come on board as one of our hosts, and we in Washington, and we raised some more money. But this was, and it sort of will flash us forward to 35 years later, but we'll save that for when we talk about the benefit. But
let's talk about that now, because I think it's kind of, let's jump in. Because I think it's a good segue. And the other stuff I want to ask you about is a little bit more light-natured in topic. So let's cover this. But it's really cool to see the parallel 30, 35 years later, that this effort, this grassroots effort, incredible, one day turned into continuous fundraising, is now coming back and bringing back in a time of need again, your community. So tell me about how this came to life and about the fundraiser.
It was a phone call from one of the cast members, Austin Jeton, or as Joanne says, Austin Jeton. Listen, we lived together for 2 years. There's no one, you can't not be family with people. And so we immediately fell back into that spirit. But Austin called me up. And I retired from dancing and have moved on to producing and directing, and I think we all have advanced in our careers on the other side of the table, which I'm very grateful for. But he calls me up and he says, "Jonathan, do you remember when we did I said, "Yes." He didn't even finish the sentence. And he goes, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "I didn't even finish my question." I said, "Whatever you're going to ask me, Austin, the answer is yes." It was literally like 3 weeks after Governor Cuomo shut down Broadway. I think he closed down the theaters on March 12th, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
March 12th, yeah. So literally like 2 weeks later, Austin calls me up and says, "What do you think if we do this?" And I said, "The only way I will consider doing this is if we do it for the Actors Fund." And that then I immediately called Joanne. I immediately called Jimmy Walsky, our dance captain, and our music team, Eddie Robinson, all the conductors, and said, "Hey, how do we do this?" We were building the plane as we were flying it, so to speak, because nobody had done this before, and I was like, and Joanne's husband, Brian Ronan, saved ourselves brilliant.
And he was our sound, Nick. He was our sound man.
And Brian was on the. Brian was on the tour as sound designer,
mixer. He was an engineer for 6 months.
Thank you. And I knew.
I did not have sex with him then. I just have to clarify that.
They weren't married then.
I did not have sex with him then. I have to clarify that.
There we go. You were dating someone else. No. Anyway, but so long story short, Mike, is all of us got together and we figured it out, as we do in the industry. And when I approached Broadway Cares and the Actors Fund, we were able to commandeer both Brian Stokes Mitchell and Tom Viola, who are, respectively the head of Stokes is the chairman of the board of the Actors Fund, and Tom Viola is the executive director of Broadway Cares. We got them both together to host this evening. So it's rather special because I have seen many of these events happen, and that is I have not seen Stokes and Tom together in one event. So we're fortunate to have that. But every single person pulled their weight, and we muscled through the opening number.
That practical CATS section.
We had some restrictions that we couldn't, and Joanne and I, who we sort of conceived this, and Joanne, you can talk to this too about our restrictions on what we agreed to do and not do. I'll let Joanne speak to that, but we all pulled this together, and all I can say is we kept on texting each other going, did we really do this in this key 8 times a week? And bands too. And I was like, yeah, Eddie Robinson, our conductor, says, this is the show key. And we were like, how the heck? And I said, well, we were 28 years old. We're 60 now,
Good God.
But Joanne, why don't you talk about, just what, in terms of creating that opening number, we weren't allowed certain.
Yes. Well, I think, as you said, Jonathan, I mean, when Jonathan called myself and Jimmy, and we were like, yes, wait a minute, what? On what? On Zoom? Who? Wait a minute, what? And I had just finished doing a benefit for another project. So I kind of had a smidgen, and I use that term very lightly, a smidgen of knowledge of the Zooming. But it was
Zoom.
The Zooming, so when I said, all right, and I'm working with Andrew Lloyd Webber a lot. So I have a relationship with him. So I said, well, and Jonathan, because of Jonathan saying, I also want to do this right. I want to do it with their blessing. We thought that was brilliant. And so we got in touch. So we were talking with RUG, Really Useful Group. And, they just, the first thing they said was, you're not going to wear costumes, are you? And I said, hell no. I said, I am not putting on a yak wig. I am not putting on makeup. No, we're not doing that. And so that was something that they did not want to see, did not want
Correct.
to back. And then of course the other big thing was, yes, you have our blessing, but we ask that you do not bring up certain things, and we said absolutely. So it was the restrictions weren't crazy, and that was the only big group number we were doing, and we said we just wanted to make it fun, but there would be no choreography that was reminiscent of Jillian's movements or anything in that,
or
and
anything
also
like at all,
right, yeah, and we could have fun with it and play, but and so that was really their biggest concern, and we were like, no, we're just gonna have fun, and so we did. So and then we had to have everybody make their own video of the song.
Yeah.
We're very much hoping to be nominated for an Emmy Award in the category of YouTube videos shot on Zoom using an iPhone in the pandemic. And the winner is...
Mike, let me clarify a few of those points. We really were, building the plane as we were flying it, and all of us work in a room. We collaborate with each other, and we talk with each other in the studio, and we're making changes, and all of that. That didn't happen here at all. As we say, we had Zoom meetings to discuss, plans of attack, and really that helped. But when it came down to the actual capture of, let's just go with Jellicle songs, first of all, we had to relearn the song. And that in itself was putting that muscle back into shape.
Oh my God, so many words.
Yes, as Leslie said, so many words. And like Joanne articulated, we didn't want to recreate the number. We wanted to celebrate the number. And, it's a celebratory, there's Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote a incredible, melody to that song. And it does have its, a joy to it, expressing these individual characters. And what we did is I said to everybody, look, when you have your solo lines, be creative with it. Here's a sort of a framework, but be creative with it. And then we just, created some wonderful ensemble moments from that. I mean, it's the only number that everybody is on stage all the time for the complete 5 minutes. Every single character does that opening number. And that's what we tried to sort of capture that. And, but yeah, it was not easy. And
I want to interject here, if I may, and say that, John, when you and I were talking early on about memory, we said one thing we really wanted to do was make it pertinent to today. We wanted it to be resonant to what everybody's going through right now. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's another thing that the Jellicle Cats, became.
Well, that was it too. And in talking with Joanne and with Jimmy and with Eddie, we're not here to recreate the musical. We not for anything. We've done it, so we don't need to do it again. We need to celebrate it.
It's been running for 40 years. It's
right.
Right.
Oh my God.
What would you say to someone who's going to come watch? What can a fan expect to see when they come to the fundraiser on Friday?
Well, you're going to see. Oh, I'm so sorry, Jonathan, but I just have to say you're going to see and hear Leslie sing "Memory," and Christine Toy Johnson, the syllabub. Who was our syllabub, sing the soprano "Memory," as I call it, and it's extraordinary. It's beautiful. I mean, I don't know if I've ever said this to you, Leslie. I've not seen Cats that often, but I've heard many people at auditions sing "Memory," and I would watch you every single night, and it's her performance was extraordinary then, and it's even more poignant now because it comes with more knowledge of who she is. It comes with the environment that we are now currently living in. So that to me will be a beautiful, and it was put together beautifully by our dear friend Matt Zarley, who is Pounceville in the show, who did a beautiful job, as Leslie said, making it poignant and making it feel that it's relevant, even though it's out of context. So that's all I have to say. Okay.
I'm actually going to go and correct that. Matt Zarley, not only did he create the video concept of this beautifully, he created it brilliantly.
And he did all the editing and all of the.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean he's
as we had an idea with it, and I don't want to ruin this for those who will watch it, but I was concerned about how we were going to put that into this because I knew people would want to see it, and something happened to me during the first few weeks of the pandemic, and I live here in New York City, and we were hard hit. Joanne's a New York City resident. I think Leslie, you're in Nashville, but we were hit here in New York, and the morbid silence that resonated in the streets was deafening. That sound was deafening, and something happened which I witnessed that I at that moment understood we were given permission to do this song. So I called Leslie up and I discussed it with her. I was encouraged to watch a video that Matt Zarley had produced, and within 30 nanoseconds, I said, Matt has to do "Memory." I call Matt in Los Angeles and I say, Matt, I need you to do this for me. Here's what we're thinking. And every director wants this to happen, for it to come back into the room better than it left the room. And when I saw the rough draft of this, I could not contain myself. It hit and resonated in such a place that I didn't expect. So I called Matt up and I was like a blubbering baby on the phone. And his work is just exquisite. I mean, exquisite. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. It's spot on. Mm-hmm. So thoughtful. And Leslie's work in it with Christine and the way we position this, I'm very excited to be able to share it with everybody. But the rest of the evening, if I could just articulate, I said we brought in Christine Toy Johnson, who is a brilliant playwright and has written several wonderful plays and is being produced all over the country. And I'm so honored just to be working with this woman. She's an incredible collaborator. And I called her up too initially, and I said, "We need a script, would you?" And she said, "Yes, of course." So we had a script, and we followed a script, and the script was looked at by Really Useful. in terms of the dynamics of it. And we, as we mentioned, we do Jellicle songs and we do memory, but there's a few other treats in there. We have a little moment with Joanne and Stokes, which is kind of fun. And we have why the Actors Fund is important to all of us who are in the entertainment industry. And that's a segment called Testimonials of Hope, which is really quite wonderful. But the one thing that I have to articulate here, and I don't mean to be dominating this conversation, I'll shut up in 2 minutes. I had asked to do Naming of Cats and read the poem. And David Dobson was like, oh, that's a different department. Joanne were like, well, what department is that? And they said, you have to go to the T.S. Eliot Estate for that. Well, long story short, the T.S. Eliot Estate gave us permission to read in an oratorical fashion the Naming of Cats. And we position this because we are doing this close to Halloween with a sort of hook into the mystery of and the spirit of Halloween and the ineffable quality of that poem, brilliantly written by obviously T.S. Eliot. So there's a fun moment there. But yeah, we had fun. That's it.
That's incredible. There's so much to look forward to.
There's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds, really exciting. And so I just want to remind everyone that they can see it on October 23rd, which is this Friday at 8 p.m. at org/CATS-benefit. And I do want to quickly just, I want to see, is there anything else you want to talk about the fundraiser? Because if not, we're going to take a hard left into more CATS topics. And so
I will say this just very quickly. I'm sorry, ladies, to dominate this, but and Joanne, you know this about Stokes. Brian Stokes Mitchell, who is the chairperson of the board of the Actors Fund, most recently articulated that in a normal year, the Actors Fund gives out $2 million. That's a normal year. Mm-hmm. To date, they have already exceeded $12 million.
I thought that was in September, Jonathan.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say either September
or
October
or something, right?
So where are we now? We're almost at the end of October. At the end of October. Yeah. So I am sure that number has gone up. But if there is a place for a donation to be made, it is the entertainment industry who is just hemorrhaging right now with the needed funds here. So anything we can do, and it's broadwaycares.org/CATS-benefit to watch the video, and there's a link there to make a donation. And P.S., we haven't even put, wait for it, a paw on stage yet, and we have already raised over 20% of our funding goal.
That's amazing.
Yes, so we're well over $2,000 with that. Actually, I think we're closer to $3,000 now that I'm thinking about it. If I can just look at it, yes, we are closer to $3,000. Thank you very much. We're over $3,000. Yes.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
My experience with the CATS fans are incredible people who I'm confident will come out to watch this.
Yeah. The music is so much fun, and it's really fun.
Great.
I am very excited, and we've got people are gonna go see it, and so I'm excited for that. And I don't want to spoil any more because it's gonna happen soon, and so everyone's gonna get to watch. So I want to go back to your tour, and I have one quick question because you mentioned it, and I've been very curious. But I know that you did outdoor theaters, and I have been fascinated by stage designs for this musical because when I walked in 2016, I was mesmerized by the whole thing before the show even started.
Yeah,
but I'm really wondering, how did you, Leslie, ascend to the Heaviside Layer outdoors? Did you like it roped up on a tree and carried? Like, how does that work outside?
No, these theaters are shed theaters that are used to doing, summer stock and all kinds of they're and we traveled with our own trucks and all of the equipment. We had 2 semis. Did we have, guys?
Oh my,
2
many,
semis.
I think we had 7 trucks. I think we traveled with 6 or 7 trucks.
7. Okay. We had 7 semis, like big trucks that traveled with all that stuff. And so there actually in Cincinnati, in St. Louis, we had a slate. I guess it was all of the time, both times when we did the outdoor. We did have different sets that had been built for, I forget who. Joe, do you remember?
God, I don't. I remember at the Muni, it felt like an extended set because it was such a huge stage, so we had more garbage, for lack of a better term, right on the sides.
Exactly. It was
right.
They had. It was different though, because I remember we all went up and we were like cats. We were like, "Wow, look at this! That's not the same stove. Ooh, look at that! That tire is different." You know. So,
yeah.
So one of the things was that our set that we traveled with was, with the exception of a few technical things, was built for indoors. So we couldn't, it wasn't waterproof. We couldn't have it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It wasn't weatherproof. So all of those outdoor sets had to be built for that particular, week or whatever it was that we were there with. And they just made everything.
Right. So that was a new deck. So that wasn't our deck, probably. If now
it wasn't our deck.
So anything that was under the overhang was probably part of our set, but anything that could possibly get wet was probably all the new add-ons. Now that I kind of think about that, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was so young then. I was like, what? Oh my
God! just send you up. It doesn't matter how.
But it was the same truss, I'm pretty sure, and it was the same.
Yeah.
Pod, and it was the same tire. I'm relatively certain that those were consistent with, what we had done before.
Yeah,
so.
I
think you're right.
This is
we had the levitating tire, and Leslie, there was a platform that dropped down from the truss.
Deus ex machina.
A Deus ex machina, exactly. And you stepped onto and went up. There wasn't in the Broadway production. There was sort of an arm that came down that Grizz walked up. This was a platform that lowered from that first truss. If I remember correctly, you got on, walked off, and then there was one of those cherry pickers that
it was a hydraulic. Our tire was a hydraulic lift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Was. Yeah.
We didn't have the only thing we didn't have, Mike, was one of the things we didn't have was our car. The trunk didn't raise up. That was one of the mechanical things we didn't have. But
that's a good transition, because I think the other thing I've been fascinated about is, again, a show that's gone for 40 years has changed and evolved. There was some choices that were interesting. I'll just call them that. There's also some regional, if they go overseas where they add different characters and things have been different names. So what, at the time of the 80s versus today, what are the biggest changes you've seen from the production you did to what you would see if you went to the tour or the 2016 revival today?
Well, I'll say, in speaking about memory, I think that the way the singers sing it now is very different. Back then, it was just Broadway people doing the show. And now there are pop stars. I can't remember her name. Who played it in 2016?
Leona Lewis. That's who I saw.
Yeah. We both worked with the same producer out in California, but she's much more of a pop artist. In fact, she's a huge pop artist. So I think that's different. Maybe an approach to the music, but I didn't see that production either, so I don't know, guys.
I think the only physical, to me, the obvious thing that I noticed, I didn't see it on Broadway. I saw it actually at the Palladium in London when it was there before it came to New York. And visually, it costume wise was different. It felt a little bit. It felt more sparse. The makeup design was definitely very different from our makeup, from Broadway, not the original West End. I think the original West End's makeup design was very different when it came to Broadway. And then Broadway's design is what all the national companies did. That was the design. So the makeup design and the hair, basically the aesthetic design of each individual cat character is very different now than it was when we did it.
Yeah.
And another thing, Joanne, did you see 216, the 2016 revival?
I saw it in London. I did not see it in New York.
I saw it in New York when we were all invited back to see it. And I will tell you, there were structural differences within the show itself. They eliminated peaks and pollicles. Gus Grell Tiger didn't do, the Siamese didn't do, what was that? What was the thing you did with Siamese? What was that?
Oh gosh, what was that? It was like, what was that?
Joanne Hunter, I remember you specifically doing Siamese because I would torture you because Skimble would come out right after that. You were downstage left. I'll never forget that. I just tortured you in that number. But there was a sign. What's that?
We wore these big things over our face that covered our entire face, our eyes and mouth. Oh,
and you had to sing through your nose or something like that. Well, that was eliminated from the 2016 revival.
Oh,
and like
I didn't know that.
Peaks and pollicles wasn't done either, and they shifted some of the storyline in terms of what the placement of songs. And
really?
Andy Blanken, yes, and it was wonderfully conceived by Andy Blankenbuehler, who did a marvelous job with bringing this back. But there were some structural changes that just, hey, listen, they made changes, and that was that. But our company, we did not. And speaking of makeup and all of that, it's interesting because I don't know if you ladies know this, but the London company, from what Gary Stavins, the person who did my hair, put my wig on.
Mine too.
Right. Oh, are you kidding me? You had Gary? I didn't know that.
Gary we became such good friends. Oh,
and that's right. I have a picture of you and Gary. May he rest in peace. Exactly. But Gary was our hairdresser, and I didn't realize that he was all three of our hairdressers. But he said, Jonathan, the Skimble, you're the only one that still has whiskers. And I was like, really? So Skimble was one of the only characters that they brought the whiskers over from London, because apparently in London they had a lot more facial hair and whiskers on the actors. But Skimble had to have those mutton chops put on every night.
Yep.
And I if you actually see my face right now, I don't actually have any more cheeks left because of the spirit gum that I had to use for that. But but we had the I don't want to say authentic, but we had the John Napier's original concept for the makeup and costumes and hair and wigs and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's the other question that I love to ask, and I'm fascinated to hear it from your tour, because it's I've heard a lot of it from 2016, but most of what I've examined from a lens that deeper than I've ever expected to go on this lens is the backstories of your characters. And so the question I want to ask is, with Skimble, Victoria, and Grisabella, what were you told going into production about how to play that character, the personalities, relationships with other cats? I mean, what were you given, or did you just kind of figure it out on the fly?
I worked with Stanley Lebowski and David Taylor just by myself, and they were amazing. As I have a degree in acting from Carnegie Mellon University, and a lot of times, and I didn't really know this was my only my second job in New York, but I'd been a lot of times from directors you get, do it like this, do it like that. But they were very much wanted me to kind of make up my own story, make my own personal backstory that would resonate when I sang the song. So they didn't tell me anything in terms of like particular T.S. Eliot lore or anything like that. They just emphasized, the moments when I wasn't hitting them and things like that. So it was really a very organic process.
So did you come up with your own backstory again? Did you have this could be my, my sibling, or this could be my, lover, or this is like my, this is what happened, especially for Grisabella, like what happened on why you were kicked out, or any of these things. I have my opinions and my interpretations of it, but I know mine is just me making it up versus being actually told or coming up with it for someone who had to perform it 8 times a week.
Well, obviously I didn't know the kittens at all because they were young. And I think...
And potentially your kids. That's the other thing that's kind of crazy about that.
Yeah, I didn't go that far into that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I kind of like, thought maybe Gus, and I had a career together, moments together. But I didn't go into a lot of that in terms of my relationships with the specific cats. It was more like a community, a tribe that I had belonged to that I needed to find my way back into. And one thing that I played off of a lot was that the kittens were the only ones who would approach me. I think sometimes you can get too much backstory when you're working on things. And most of my time on stage was all by myself. So it wasn't like I had to interact in a scene with people, just basically right before I would sing and things like that. So,
Which makes
I'd
sense.
love to hear what your theories are.
I have a lot. There's a lot of theories.
Okay.
And it's not just mine. There's a lot out there on the internet of, who you are the mother potentially of, and is that why someone approaches you first when they come back? And there's a lot. It's a really dark web of internet rumors you can get into if you want to.
Interesting. I'm not sure.
I can tell you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Leslie.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
I have never heard that ever. I can tell you what I was told, if I believe, by David Taylor, that Victoria that Victoria has a very a connection with Grisabella, and that is why she's a kitten, and and bigotry and hate is taught. It's not, you're not born with it, right? And so the idea that that she's the first one, she's the one that touches that says that doesn't let her leave. And I was told that, and I'm going to paraphrase like crazy because I'm trying to remember, but that at one time, Grisabella was the Victoria in the tribe. She was the young, the innocent, the one that was gonna, and then she strayed. That's or something like that. And then she hooked up one too many times. So that's what I kind of remember, but she was not the mother of any of the kittens, but that she was very similar to Victoria, being the pure cat, and then she became a hussy. No, I'm kidding.
That's the rumor. That's not the joke. That's the rumor. Like the rumor is that went on to some type of sex work or some type of drug-based type of leaving the tribe.
That was definitely part of my backstory, is that she had fallen from approval. She had fallen from grace, that she was the glamour cat. She was on her way to possibly a theater career, a movie career, and interacted with Gus maybe, and
the bad boys, the bad cat.
Yeah. And that the theater crowd, whatever. And that she lost her way somehow, and that now she's that person.
I've always said that it's the bald Britney Spears moment before getting the Vegas show.
Oh my God.
Like that kind of like really low.
Yeah. That's
Grisabella says, thank goodness there was no internet.
Yes, there was no social media when the show came out, so that part of the story is not out there. It's just I guess made up by the super fans or people's interpretations. What about Skimble?
You guys have way too much time on your hands. That's all I have to say. I will say this because I knew you were going to ask this question, and I will say that on our first day of rehearsal, or there shortly thereafter our first day, they put us all in a circle, and we were at the old 890 Studios, if you remember,
which is the Michael Bennett Studios.
Which is the Michael Bennett Studios. That's right. And we were all put together in a big circle, and we introduced ourselves, etc. And I will remember very, very specifically David Taylor, our director, saying, "Skimbleshanks, well, he's everybody's favorite uncle." And I thought, I'm his favorite uncle. So I guess you're trying to tell me I'm a gunkle, a gay uncle. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah.
And what I found interesting about that is just the fastidiousness of this character. We didn't, I did what I could with that role in terms of what it was. And to me, the costume dictated this sort of wonderful brightness. The song itself starts off with jingle bells. Mm-hmm. And what I learned later, and Joanne, I asked Joanne this, and she confirmed this, that it is Andrew Lloyd Webber's favorite song in the show. If I'm not mistaken, Joanne, am I right about that?
He loves Skimbleshanks.
And it is beautifully, beautifully written. And when you just start up with that bright, I really loved it. I really did love it. There was something that hit me with that. And I did my job. I hope I did it well. But as far as the interactions, there was talk about me, hooking up with Gumby Cat, and maybe we're doing something. We had we were all sort of, plotting armies and this kind of thing. And, I don't know, but
there's a rumor with you and Tugger. It's called Tugger Shanks.
Well,
oh my God.
Let me sit with that for a minute. I need to talk to BK about that. BK Keneally, who played Tugger for us, who did a brilliant job. After we had Andy Spangler, who was our first Tugger. And
did he actually replace Andy Spangler?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Okay.
And the original Tugger, Andy Spangler, we weren't able to locate Andy. And I hope he's doing well wherever he is. But Andy was with our show for a hot second. And I spoke to BK 2 days ago, and I said, BK, I got to tell you something. I don't remember. The only Tugger I remember is you. So if there was a relationship between Tugger and Skimble, what did you call it? Tugger Shanks?
Tugger Shanks. That's what the internet calls it. Tugger Shanks.
Okay, I need to discuss this with BK.
Google it, baby. Google it.
I'll Google it. Yes. But no, I will tell you what the creative team did for us. And Joanne articulated this earlier. They had us, and you said one day, Joanne, I'm going to correct you. I believe we were a week.
No, but it was more. The first day of rehearsal. It was in the morning we sat around. They gave us the synopsis. That after lunch on our first day, we were crawling around, licking each other.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And we really, and they improv'd us for a number of days for us to work in this feline, form, and also to just get to know each other, because I think Leslie mentioned the word tribe, and that was one word that they kept on reiterating to us. This tribe of cats gets together one time a year to decide who's going to go up to the Heaviside layer. And I remember that very, very clearly with that. And all these little anecdotes that happen in between exemplify to old dude who he's going to choose to do this. And who does he choose? We all know. So
well, I'm interested in knowing, Mike, who you think should have been chosen.
Oh,
I'm very interested.
Let's do the round robin.
Okay.
And then I'll answer that after I make all of you answer that as well.
Okay.
So the first round robin question is, if you got to go on as a different cat than who you went on, who would you want to play?
Bomb Ballerina.
Okay. And why? I'd love to hear why too.
Well, because she was older. I mean, not the actress, I don't mean, but there was something, because I was the white cat, and she had to be pure, and she had to do that damn adagio every night. And
I did it brilliantly, I might add.
Well, you're very kind, thank you. But I just love Bomb. I love her coming out. I mean, I love Demeter and Bomb. I love the song. I love that they had sass. There was sexuality to them. They were edgier. So that's who I wanted to be.
Go, Leslie.
I can't think of, or I have no idea. I mean, the interesting thing is that I actually got this role. And Joe, I was at that dance call with you at the Court Theater in New York. I had to get, I couldn't get an audition for Grisabella because my agent said they were going to go with a name. And I was just a kid. So I went to the dance call for Bomb and Demeter. I was auditioning for Bomb and Demeter. And I walked out of that whole process with the lead. It was a crazy, crazy thing.
Wow.
You know, John, I wrote a TED Talk on that.
That is amazing. I didn't know that, Leslie. Oh, my God.
But I remember you, that ponytail and everything.
Oh, man.
So you're going on as Bomb and Demeter. One of those two as well.
I'm going to go with Bomb and Demeter too, because I was thinking that I would get that. I was, up for that. And I was really proud that I'd been kept after the dance audition. And I had a really great bluesy Broadway song to perform for my, for the singing, when they asked me to stay and sing. And I had gotten my head wrapped around that I was excited to do that. So I'm going to say Bomb.
So I guess that leaves me. Mike, I'm going to be upfront with you, and I'm going to give you a sort of a pat answer to your question as to what the other character I would be, and it would probably be the follow spot operator. I had no ambition to play any other character in that show. I really didn't. I admired everybody for who they were cast as, and in retrospect, looking back on it, it was spot on perfect.
I agree. I agree.
Spot on perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not saying replace your own cast. I'm saying if you were, in a fantasy world of the Winter Garden, ignoring
spot operator
range or whatever, because I answered this question before. I can't sing a note, so I can't go on as any of the cats. But it's kind of fun to think about which storyline interests you.
I mean, I guess Mungo Jerry, just because it was sort of close to Skimble. I mean, I in terms of the animation of it, or I mean, I don't know. I love when they would say, when you would come out of the stage run, they'd be like, who are you? And when you wanted to go to dinner, you'd be like, I was a follow spot operator. Because nobody knew who you were.
Yeah, with pin curls and a baseball cap, right?
There you go.
So what was your favorite? What's your favorite song outside of take out the one that is either about you or that you dance to?
Well, I was going to say Jellicle Cats because I think that is one of the most wonderfully written songs. I'm a songwriter now, and I just think that is musically, it's just so exciting and brilliant. But I guess I did perform in that, so I guess
that one. I think I meant more. No Skimble Shanks, no memory. Or at least for you.
Then definitely
so
Jellicle Cats is. Oh my God, I used to love doing that number. It was so much fun. Yeah.
I'm going to say McCavity. I love singing McCavity. The group, when all the ladies came out to finish the song. After
That's right. That's right. All you gals did McCavity, didn't you? That's right. I can see those two lines, man. Right? Yes. I have to say the moment that I told Jimmy Walski this the other day. I said, in Choir Tire when we were singing Mystical Divinity before after the boot drop, and you do that what was it, do what, that explosion from that tire, that I have to say, and I told Jimmy this, I said, I have to be honest with you, Jimmy, there wasn't one time that I don't remember that I didn't absolutely love doing that moment in the show. Skimble was right next to Mistopheles. I told this to Randy Slovacek, who played Mistopheles. I said, I loved being next to you in Tire Choir just because we had such a fun time. And then that breakout, that to me was really just was a beautifully constructed theatrical moment. And as a director and choreographer, you look back on that, go, yeah, you got that one right. You know,
that's also from the opening number.
That's what I'm talking about. Jellicle songs.
Yeah, no, I'm just telling Mike because I don't know if he knew what
I'm sure he does.
I'm slowly picking it up.
Tire choir and all that.
The tire choir, yeah. The tire choir is when the whole company comes together to sing Mystical Divinity. You know, that whole section. So,
okay, second to last one. Then we're going to get to my final question, which is if you had to quarantine with one of the characters, not Catherine, which cat would you quarantine with?
Wow, what a question! Wow, quarantine.
That is,
yeah, if you got stuck in a New York apartment for the month of April with one of the cats.
I'm going to say this to you only because she's texting me right now, asking me how this interview is going right now. Is Demeter, played in our company by Deborah Genevieve Athens, who I have to say, if I was stuck in a room with anyone, it would have to be Demeter, just because I know she'd set up a bottle of whiskey on the table and be like, all right, let's talk.
I'm gonna say Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser because it, for all those moments where we were just paralyzed, what are we gonna do now? That would have they would have made it fun with their menacing tricks, and that to me.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
I'm going to say Tugger.
Ooh.
All right.
I
love you.
I'm afraid to ask you to explain why.
Ask her. I'm sorry.
She's got class and sex appeal too.
Yeah.
You know what?
I did say Mungo Jerry. So.
You did. I know. Don't think I didn't catch that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
The most common answer so far has been Mistopheles. You get magic.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Just seems like a good time. That's been the most common answer so far. I had argued, if I took out the New York apartment thing, is that I'm pretty sure Bustopher Jones probably has a pretty nice suburban mansion.
Ooh,
that you might not even have to see him if you quarantine. And, the fridge would be stocked. Everything would be...
Nice.
Totally.
What a good idea.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
So that's been I've spent way too much time digging into this type of thing.
And listen, Skimble had quite a lot to do with Bustopher Jones, that particular number. I remember, being very close to, in the staging of it. I remember they were saying, you take care of everything for Bustopher Jones. You make sure his napkin is right. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So, yeah.
So, final question. It's coming. I've argued for many, many episodes that I don't think Grisabelle is the right choice to be the Jellicle choice. And so my question is, do you agree or disagree with me? And if you agree with me, who would you pick to be the Jellicle choice?
Oh, gosh.
I tried to think of, because it's hard for me not – this is Leslie talking now. It's hard for me not to think that she was right based on what I think her story is. So, Deuteronomy needs to stick around.
Go
ahead, Con.
If I could, give a dot to that. Gus Growl Tiger would be the other choice for me.
I agree.
I was going to say that. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Just the retrospect, the introspection of his number and what he tells us. He would make a candidate to go to the Heaviside Layer.
Who else is up for it? Like everybody else is young.
So that is where this debate gets very interesting. It depends on how cerebral.
Really, Mike? Wow.
So the interpretation and my interpretation, I'm not going to claim credit here. This is the way I kind of approached this, again, walking out mesmerized in 2016, knowing nothing about what I was going to see. So I interpreted it as, I saw Leona Lewis. I interpreted it as the X Factor. I watched a competition show, and just everyone that sang was up for the win. So to me, I didn't really until I started digging deeper, and it's very clear that besides Grisabella, Gus is kind of the one that gets argued the most. I viewed it as, I just watched the weirdest form of the X Factor that I've ever seen. And I took it as the ones that, so I remember Mungo Jerry Ripple Teaser, that was a song stuck in my head, but the performances that were most memorable to me were Tugger and Mistopheles. And then, they've got their whole, are they together, brothers together, that whole thing. And then I just kept thinking, the X Factor, Simon Cowell always just takes two solos and makes them a group, like One Direction and Fifth Harmony. I think they should go together. That's been my argument.
Oh,
that's
and
interesting.
I always thought they had a past, so that makes sense.
Oh, that's interesting. I always thought that the heavy side layer was when almost like as if you've learned what you needed to learn, so you're able to move on. And the only thing about Gus, I felt like Gus was, I think to me, Gus was in his seventh life. This was his last life.
Yeah.
And so that's why he got that reminiscent song. And, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I was thought. That's why I thought, like, Grisabella, she, like Leslie said, she was on her way to be something. She lost her path. She lost her way, but she is come to given a second chance. And so this is why, and she deserves a second chance. Not that every cat does, but to me, Tugger and Mistopheles, they're still running wild. They haven't gone off the path so much that they need to come back and as in their next life to learn more yet. I think that's what I always thought. So that's why, but I always think Gus would be, but at the same time, this is Gus's last life.
And actually, that was 2016 Christopher Gurr. That was his argument, is that he didn't think he had another life to live. So if he died, he thought he was over. So he kind of felt the same way, which, and the more I've researched, the more I've thought, like, that argument one makes sense. The argument for Grisabella based off of like whose time it is, who's deserving. I get it. I really think I walked out of the theater I walked into the theater with no context, and I walked out of the theater with my frame from Leona Lewis. I think if you would have replaced her with anybody else at the time, I might not have came to that conclusion, which I do think is like kind of a fascinating thing about what I love about this show, which is everybody sees it at a different time, different production, different way, and picks out something unique about it. Like almost everyone answers every one of those round robin questions differently, which is, I don't think, the case in a lot of other musicals. I think a lot of other musicals, there's someone that you really love, or you kind of are almost pointed to somebody, versus this musical, there's so much happening. There's so many different ways to interpret it. There's incredible performances from everybody, and it's just kind of a unique thing. And that's what's kind of beautiful about the musical.
Well, Mike, as I'm listening to both of my dear colleagues and you say this, and I will try to summate this as best I can. Every artist who does anything in theater can only hope that what they do has a legacy and has something that can be talked about for generations to come. And the fact that we are talking about this not only 34 years later, but in this context, is a testament to the creation of what Andrew Lloyd Webber, Trevor Nunn, Gillian Lynn created from poems from T.S. Poems, not a script, poems from T.S. Eliot. And one of those most remarkable things I will say, when I saw Andrew commentating the 1986 film, 86, am I right? 86?
The 98 movie?
Yes, the movie.
The 98.
Thank you. When he was commentating that on his web channel, there were nuggets of information that he was expressing that I wish I had known, and the creation of certain moments in that play that as a director, I look back on now and I go, oh my God, that's brilliant. So they took poems and created what we articulate in our event, a landmark musical which changed the face of musical theater now and forever. So, and I go back to the day that we did our first rehearsal, and ladies, if you remember this, Bernard Jacobs, who was then the president, may he rest in peace, of the Schubert Organization, said, "Welcome to CATS. You are all now part of theater history." I'll never forget it. So thank you for allowing us to expand upon something that we celebrate in this event. And I was honored to do. And as you can hear, we all were. So,
and I think that's a beautiful way to end it, is that, the show has been historic, and, as easy it is to poke fun at it, it's lasted for so long because of how well done it is and how great it was and how groundbreaking it was. So I'm excited to see what you have put together. I'm excited for the fundraiser.
Yay.
So I do want to say thank you all again for being here. And just a reminder that you can watch the With Love Now and Forever CATS4COVID Relief fundraiser on Friday, October 23rd at 8 p.m. at broadwaycares.org/CATS benefit. And it'll be running through October 27th.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
This is delightful. I mean,
delightful.
A lot of times
delightful.
people take theater a little too seriously, I think, and how much fun it is to just turn it on its head.
And thank you again. And thanks everyone for listening to this bonus episode on the Wrong Cat Diet, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.